All right, ready to begin the news conference? Coach, want to open statement with this?
Sure. Good win for us. I was glad that we were able to play quite a few players and, get some guys that have been working extremely hard, get them in, get them some snaps. Like I told those guys that got in, there's no replacing game reps, and they'll get better with each opportunity. And, so that was good to see. Same with Cutter. I thought he did a really good job for his second start, and was much better prepared. He operated very good. I thought we were much more clean in our operation tonight. It was a point of emphasis for us all week, and I thought he did a very good job of managing the game. Happy for that. I thought we were physical. Running the ball for 252 yards was good to see. It was also good to see Cutter hit some, very good passes and, throw for 240. So overall good effort. Offensively, I felt like we, really moved the ball pretty consistently all day. A couple of third downs there. We had one drop and some possessions that, weren't as clean as we'd like, but that's going to happen. We have to be able to overcome that. Defensively, it was really an odd game because you felt like you played extremely well for the entire first, for most of the first half until the end, and then we got beat on the double move. Just not very good, just not a good play. No way around it, and then get back out there and give up an over route, and just we need to be better. We need to play that some of that better at the end of the first half. Obviously the double move, but then the second possession where they got some points as well. We needed to just be cleaner in the way we were playing some of those plays. We were matching it and should have carried the over route. And just a couple things that frustrated us. And they moved the ball very efficiently. Give them credit. And they had us a little off balance, and those are things that we need to work on, obviously. So kind of frustrating that way. So I'll open it up.
Mark, did Cutter do enough to where he's the guy moving forward?
I was pleased with the way he operated. I really was. I don't think I don't think it'd be right for me to make that decision right here and now. I was pleased with the way he played. We'll give it some time and look at it and get back on the practice field.
What stood out to you about Cutter's pocket presence and just the way that he carried himself?
Yeah, I thought he was really, good, with his operation and his presence. As I mentioned with some of the defensive players, same with Cutter, game reps, there's no replacing that, and he'll get better with each opportunity and each snap. And, I thought his awareness was very good. There were some plays, where there were some other things out there, like we mentioned in the first two games, that he'll look at and know that he could do, play better as well and get more comfortable. But overall, very, very pleased.
How do you think he just handled pressure whenever the pocket was clean or not, or when it came to handling that element of the game?
Yeah, I didn't, just watching it without watching the film and everything, I felt like his awareness seemed to be pretty good. I think, when he buys time and scrambles and has a lot of time, it'll be different against different opponents, so that's something we got to look out for. But overall, we look pretty comfortable back there.
Any update on Dante?
He should be fine. He got hit a couple times in the same spot, and it maybe was something where he could go back in, but if he got hit again, it may lead to something more drastic.
Mark, stopping the fake punt was a big play. What did you see on that?
Yeah, CJ, we repped it the other day, and he was a little iffy on it, so we actually repped the exact, if not the exact, I have to look at it, but seeing it be the exact play. And his eyes were a little funky the other day in practice, and Coach Jay Bullware, he does a remarkable job, and Jay's relentless, so we'll get after those guys, and he made his intentions clear, and we got it fixed, and he made a big stop.
But you guys had Cutter making some throws that looked great down the sidelines tonight. You had some guys making some catches, a few of them were by the tight ends.
Yeah.
important have they been this year in the offense when things are going well?
Yeah.
Getting those guys involved.
Yeah, I thought, Josh was very close to catching the one in the end zone too. It looked like maybe he had it for a moment and didn't clear the ground. But Josh has made some very tough catches and been close to it, same with Willie and all those guys. So it's been good we need to get them involved. They're good players, and it's been fun to get them more involved. If Cutter doesn't snap the ball a little too soon on the one, we have another touchdown, I think, by a tight end here, right? So we're just a little quick on the draw there.
The night that Seth had tonight, 3 touchdowns, and running all over, what can you say about what he did?
Seth has been very steady. I think you know that. He's been very efficient this year. He runs very tough. He's a guy that runs with a lot of energy. He's kind of wild with the way he runs. You don't know what's going to come out. It's between him and God. But he's been running very tough. Very tough yards when he has to. But also, will make some pretty drastic cuts and some moves. So I'm very pleased with the way he's playing too.
Mark, how do you feel about your defensive depth right now, and how important is it to develop that as the season goes on?
Yeah, I mentioned that. I said that early in the year, and I'm sure you guys will point that out to me. When I said that secondary could be a strength, and I still think that, but I did back it up that day with saying, well, you get an injury or two, and all of a sudden, you could be, not where you want to be. And right now we have a couple that was, Ryan was the same thing. He was battling an injury, and we just didn't want to push it. It led to some points, but we need him healthy. And so he was tight, and he's been battling something that we felt like if he, went in there and pulled something, then he's going to be out for weeks, and we couldn't afford that.
Coach, you guys have talked about in the offseason getting that offensive line to a new place, getting it better and improving. Now that you guys are a quarter of the way through the year, what's your analysis of how they have improved and how their performance has been?
Yeah, without question, I think it's pretty obvious that they're playing much better. And, I really have talked about it, but I really like that group. And that's not just Coach Beak and me just up here blabbing. I like those guys. They have a great mentality. They care. They fight. They work well together. They're bringing along the younger guys, and getting them in there. I could tell it was only 2 snaps, but I could tell that group when they got in there, the 2s, that they were trying to move some people as well. So I like the mentality that they're working with. And like I said, they're just a very mature group and very physical and playing, they're playing well.
You all attempted a lot of shots downfield in the first couple of weeks, but weren't able to connect. Just how much easier does it make things on the offense when you are able to connect on some of those downfield?
Yeah, without a doubt. Just getting some tough. I thought the guys made competitive catches today, and we even left a few more out there. There was some more plays out there, but it was a good starting point with Cutter, starting his first game of the season, and it definitely can loosen it up. I think at halftime, I looked at the stats. At halftime, I just looked at the quickie stats, and we were dead even with runs and passes. And if you could get that kind of balance, you could have some efficiency that we're looking for.
I think the word you would probably use is leaky on some of the stuff in the first half, where
Yeah.
they were just kind of getting inches and yards there.
Mhm.
But after you go to halftime locker room, it's 3 and out, fake punt stuff. What'd you say in the halftime locker room to get their attention?
Yeah, it was kind of a little aggravating for us. I mean, give them credit. I thought they did a nice job with their presentation, some of the stuff that they did, and they just hit the plays late. They got them some momentum, some big plays. But we worked all week. We talked about last week, but we wanted to detail some things up and worry about us. And the guys really had a great mentality all week as far as their effort and their attitude and their attention to detail. But it doesn't always carry over to games, and that's why experience matters. That's where games matter. That's why you want to get better as the season goes on, because you're seeing things just presented different, and things move fast out there, and guys want to do well, but they got to play with clean eyes.
Marty, it looked like Zach was in uniform but didn't do anything wrong. Was he available in an emergency situation today? Or?
Zach was very good about that, about dressing and being available in an emergency situation. I had confidence in Bo. I have confidence in the other quarterbacks, but you can't rep them all. Zach has all those, reps banked and might be out there to be able to throw something short and hand the ball off and operate. And so, I appreciate him, doing that. A lot of quarterbacks with their arm, they don't want to mess with that, but he was great and he tried to throw, each and every day this week, after, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but just wasn't feeling great and it wasn't worth it, to hurt him, worse. And so, but he was great, he wanted to dress and he wanted to be there if we needed him.
How do you approach this bye week now, the extended time before really kind of the teeth of the SEC schedule?
Yeah, we got to have a great week. Much like last week, we just got to really attack the week and worry about us and get better. The early part of the week, we'll just play ball, we'll play fastball, we'll have a normal practice Monday and give them Tuesday off. Coaches will prepare and we should have a full game plan and be ready to put that in, for practicing on Wednesday and Thursday, and that'll be a Tuesday and a Wednesday practice. So we'll have a good week and give them one extra day with Tuesday, get them in the weight room and trying to get their bodies right, for the next game and for the season, keeping their weights up and really lifting and trying to get them as healthy as they can be.
Can you keep telling your guys to pick off the first pass of every game?
Yeah, it'd be nice. I'd like to see him. Maybe I should have him pick off the last 2 minutes of the first half. So no, it was nice. It was a really nice start. It was nice to get the fans involved, and I thought it was good. Offensively, it was efficient. Defensively, was efficient early. Got some energy in the stadium and played well. And then we gave up some late that kind of took a little air out, but we came back and responded, like you said, in the third quarter there.
Everybody good? All right.
Thank you.
Coaches and players over in the dining hall.